Canucks fans, the stakes have never been higher. With the team returning from a rough road trip that saw them only manage 2 wins, the playoff picture is looking bleak. But don't count them out just yet. With 5 crucial matchups against playoff teams ahead, can Vancouver muster the grit and determination needed to make a miraculous run? Join me as we dissect the latest news and explore what needs to happen for the Canucks to keep their postseason dreams alive. The Vancouver Canucks find themselves in a precarious position as we dive deeper into the final stretch of the season. After a grueling 6-game road trip, the Canucks returned home with a record of 2-2-2, which feels more like a missed opportunity than a step forward. With only 8 games left on the schedule, their playoff hopes are hanging by a thread. Currently sitting at 34-27-13, the team managed to collect just 6 out of a possible 12 points during that trip, and it seems to have significantly impacted their chances of making the postseason. Now, with a mere 9.7% chance of reaching the playoffs according to MoneyPuck.com, it's hard not to feel a sense of disappointment. Just a week ago, that number was a promising 59.8%. What happened? Well, the Canucks' performance on the road didn't just fail to keep them in contention, it allowed teams like the Calgary Flames to creep up, now just a point behind with 2 games in hand. Meanwhile, the St. Louis Blues appear to be on a hot streak, having won 9 games in a row and sitting comfortably with an 88.4% chance of making the playoffs. It's gut-wrenching to witness this transformation. The Canucks needed a strong, successful road trip to fuel their playoff aspirations. And instead, they seem to have dug themselves into a deeper hole. The upcoming schedule isn't exactly forgiving either. Of the 8 remaining games, 5 are against teams currently holding playoff spots. If this team has any aspirations of competing for the Stanley Cup, they will need to find a way to finish the season almost flawlessly. But it's not just about the Canucks. They also need other teams to stumble. Now let's talk about the Minnesota Wild. They're currently holding the last 2 wildcard spots along with the Blues, but they haven't been playing well since returning from the Four Nations face-off. They've got an 8-9-1 record in their last 18 games, which could open the door for the Canucks if they can find their footing. But honestly, can we rely on that? Do you think this was the best decision? I'm torn here. On one hand, I want to believe in the Canucks, but the other side of me is worried that time is running out. The management has to be feeling the heat as well. What decisions will they make in the coming days leading up to the trade deadline? Will they stay the course, or will they look to shake things up? It's a delicate balancing act, and every choice could have long-lasting ramifications not only for this season, but for seasons to come. If they decide to make a significant move, what message does that send to the fans? And if they stand pat, how does that align with our hopes and dreams as supporters? I can't help but feel a wave of frustration wash over me when I think about the potential that was there just a few weeks ago. The team had such high hopes, and now it feels like we're left grappling with uncertainty. The emotional roller coaster we're on as fans is exhausting, but also part of what makes being a Canucks supporter so intense. As we approach these final games, I want to hear from you. What do you think? Is this team capable of making a last-minute push for the playoffs? Or have the recent performances convinced you that it's time to look toward next season? I genuinely want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And you? What do you think? I want to hear your opinions down below. Are you optimistic that the Canucks can turn this around? Or do you think it's going to be a long off-season? Your insights are valuable, and engaging in this conversation is what makes us a community. The Vancouver Canucks season is winding down, and let's be honest, it hasn't been the best ride. As we approach the end of this 2024-25 season, the sentiment around the team feels a bit like, well, that wasn't so bad considering everything. Not the most inspiring quote, right? But it captures the essence of what we've experienced this year. The flickers of hope that have danced through this season have often felt like cruel taunts, reminding us of the highs and lows we've faced. Let's talk about that recent 6-game road trip. Going 2-2-2 might not sound terrible, but 2 victories out of 6? That's not exactly setting the world on fire. Sure, giving an extra point to St. Louis stings, but it's hardly a death blow to our playoff hopes. In a season where we've stumbled over our own feet more often than not, managing to piece together a couple of wins felt like a minor victory. But now, we're left with just 8 games to somehow scrape together 6 points. Definitely not impossible, but certainly not easy. And here's where we get into some real talk. The Blues are 6 points ahead of us, but we've got a game in hand. If we can pull off a win and they falter, suddenly we're just 4 points back. Minnesota is also in our sights, and having 2 teams to chase is better than just one. But let's not kid ourselves. The reality is that the Canucks' playoff hopes are hanging by a thread. Calgary could easily leapfrog us, and it's possible our final game against the Kings might be a make or break for any playoff aspirations. This has been a season rife with caveats. You might want to call them excuses, and I wouldn't argue too much against that. But let's not forget that most teams don't trade away their first-line center mid-season, thinking it'll help their playoff chances. Injuries have taken a toll, and the challenges we've faced have been numerous. As we look forward to the final stretch, there's something to be said about how we've started to find our scoring touch. 21 goals in 6 games is a decent haul. But let's face it, we've also struggled with our special teams. The penalty kill has been solid, but the power play? It hasn't been good enough. This is what you expect when key players are missing from the lineup. Speaking of key players, there's hope on the horizon. Elias Pettersson and Niels Höglander might be back for Wednesday's game. That's a big deal. But we're still waiting on a timeline for Philip Chytil. If all 3 return, it could change the dynamic of our lineup significantly. Having more talent available is crucial as we make this late push. But here's the kicker. The longest winning streak we've managed this season is just 4 games. If we want to extend our season beyond these last 8 games, we'll need to break that streak. It's going to take some serious grit and determination. So, what do you think? Is this the right path for the Canucks? Honestly, I'm torn. There's a part of me that believes we can still turn this ship around, but another part recognizes how challenging the road ahead is. I want to hear your thoughts on this. How do you see the Canucks finishing this season? What are your expectations moving forward? Join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on all things Canucks. And make sure to activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our latest updates. Let's rally together, Canucks fans.